Okay, so we are starting Tech Talks episode 3 or 4.
I have no idea.
At
At least 3.
least 3. And I am Victor here with Julie, and today we are going to be talking more about it was the software, right? Portion of.
No, I don't think about soft questions for that, but for
Weren't you talking
today I
about?
was talking about, well, I guess it is part of soft, but I have other, okay. All right, I guess but more specifically it's about security.
Yeah, security and what so we had security in different devices such as Windows and
Do you want me to just ask?
Android. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So the first question I had was because there was recently an article about a major security flaw, Chrome on Windows 7.
Mhm.
And so then I was wondering, do we always get these notifications about major security flaws? Obviously, people would want to know if there's a security flaw automatically. You have to wait and get a push, or like what? You just have to hope to see an article.
So generally, security flaws you find through, or you'll learn through our articles. It doesn't the Chrome. There's not really a pop up that Chrome or Windows or anybody really does that says, "Hey, this is a giant security flaw." They do push out security updates, which you'll get notifications on, but you don't know if that's just bug fixing or and general security, or if there's a major flaw fix in that particular patch, unless uh, you either A, go through the patch notes yourself, or B, know of that through like some sort of news, because news will often pick it up whether it's a big flaw or not.
So what you're saying is it is important to keep updated on those updates.
Yeah, so it's definitely to make sure that you keep when Chrome and Windows and things like that
What?
tend to ask for an update, you should update. And specifically with this one, with the Windows 7 Chrome one, even Google came out and announced you should actually just upgrade to Windows 10 at this point, because this is that kind of big of a flaw.
What about Apple? The security flaws I've heard, less there, something the close.
Yeah, so Apple does not have as many viruses and things, because of most of the time you can only get apps through the App Store. There are exceptions to the rule if you know what you're doing, but in general, like because things are curated through the App Store, that significantly reduces the amount of um, bad apps that come through. And there still have been apps that have taken advantage from time to time. I can't think of one in the Apple Store per se, but I know in the Android App Store, there was apps that were data mining through for cryptocurrency in the background while your device was using the app,
Hmm.
and things like that. So they do sometimes. It's not 100% safe being in a walled garden, but it's definitely a lot safer than the traditional Windows model of you can just download anything from the internet. Now they do have also Windows has the Windows Store where you can download most of what you need through the Windows Store anyways. So you wouldn't need to find it on like just randomly throughout the web.
This is making me work math.
Yeah.
It's just hard because then when you close, like when you have 20 things open and you need them all on a daily basis, them for an oh, because that was another question I had was, so when you do an update and then it says you have to restart your device to finish this update, and how important is that? And
So yeah, when you update and that needs a restart for your device, generally what it's updating is held on temporary storage. It doesn't actually fully implement the update until after you start.
Okay. In app updates, they're not as important than whereas like a phone update is more important. Okay.
So generally, phone updates will have more security features to them, but app updates will still also have security flaws found out. So, for instance, Facebook oftentimes will update with security updates through Facebook, as Facebook tends to be a very popular one, or a big one that constantly is coming out with updates, and not all of them being feature updates. So apps will get security updates just as well as.
This might sound like it's so okay. So you just said about Facebook updates.
Uh-huh.
If you're using, so I don't have that Facebook app.
Yeah.
If you're using the Facebook through your browser, then it's automatically updated.
It's when you're using Facebook through your browser, then it's based off your browser app updates, and then Facebook itself is as up to date as whatever server that you're getting the Facebook information from, which generally is not an issue once you get to that point. They are now creating what is called streaming apps, where instead of downloading an app to your phone, when you go to the site, it can just use the app and stream the app so that you can get this app version of the site, but without downloading it. And that's being a newer and newer trend as Google is implementing that in more and more Android devices.
Interesting. Like, used to be you had to download like Flash players to just watch videos, and then like YouTube revolutionized that. And
with the history of like things, plugins like Flash Player and
plugin. Wait, why is it called?
A plugin is a program that is installed onto your device that tells your device how to read certain material. So like back in the day, you had many different file formats, and you still do, and things like Windows weren't innately built, or browsers even were not innately built for reading these codecs. So then you would have a player or a plugin like Flash Player that is designed to read these codecs. So and you would then be able to play from there. And so when people are sharing files of videos and things, that you would have to have the proper codexes or proper file readers, such as a Flash Player, to read the proper codexes.
Do I need to know what a codex? No.
It's just the file format. Essentially, is what that is. So the file format. But eventually, like you said, YouTube kind of revolutionized that by being the one that hosts it. I think you still needed Flash Player for a while, but everything at one point you just needed one. You just needed one plugin, which was a Flash Player for the longest time. But then eventually, with the rise of HTML5, HTML5 actually has built-in codec.
5? What do you mean HTML5? So now we also have different generations of code?
Yes. They also evolve over time too.
So then, because they're adding to it, or they're changing the language?
They are adding to it. They're giving it more capabilities. So there are some things that change, but the general gist of it stays the same. But yeah, but like with HTML5, you no longer need to install Flash Player to play YouTube, right? You can now YouTube and your browsers. YouTube is built on HTML5 code, which means your browser can just instantly play without any need to have any plugin whatsoever.
Okay, that was a rabbit hole, but I have more questions about the security stuff, so back to that.
Okay.
So I was also curious about when there is a security flaw, when one of those problems exists, where is that the chink in the armor, where do they get you? Is it the server? Is it your device? Is it the network? Like if you're at a cafe and it's a public network that other people, just strangers, are using this network, do they get to your information? Security flaw? Are you vulnerable in what way? How?
So the most common form of being hacked is somebody getting access to your device or to your social media or whatever login that you're being hacked from, usually through a phishing scam.
So your username and password.
Or, yeah, they find a way to find your username and password and log in.
But do they do that? Like, obviously, if they pick up your device and you have it saved, they wouldn't necessarily know what it is, but they could get into your account, potentially card information. But what about like the networks? Like if you're sitting at a cafe,
so it is possible for people to, if you have an open connection to the network that you're in, and somebody is also there that is capable of hacking into your device. There's been security flaws even in Bluetooth, where people just have Bluetooth on but not connected to anything, and people have been finding ways to access devices through there.
Then they like link their devices,
and
to yours, and then they can get even like your browser history and information.
I'm not sure how much Bluetooth can access. I don't know, but in theory, if once they have connection to your device, they know the proper coding to tell the device to do whatever it needs it to do, they can do some damage. And same thing with if they hack into your computer through the network. Like generally they can find your IP address on a network. That's not especially if they're on the same network as you, that's not too terribly hard. And if they are able to find some way to get the device to connect to theirs, and they can get control and access to it.
Can you set up so that you need to agree to connect things via Bluetooth, or is that not really?
Generally, the best thing to do, especially since right now Bluetooth is pretty limited in its scope, is since right now, especially, one thing connects at a time. If you're not connected to something via Bluetooth,
turn it off.
Turn it off.
Okay. That makes sense.
Best way to do that.
Easy enough, and you just pull down, click.
Yeah. I think Bluetooth is generally a setting on most phones that you can just do through the pull down settings or pull up settings if you're on iPhone.
Okay.
And so yeah, most common version is like a phishing scam where they get your login information somehow.
Don't answer those unsolicited emails, you're saying.
Yeah. And then
never give your social. Yeah.
Okay. Probably it's very uncommon for somebody to hack you through like in a network or in a building like that. It requires a lot of things to actually come together in order for that to happen. Generally, the other attacks come in on the company side. So a lot of times you've heard probably of the data breach that Target has had a few years back, and other stores. They found a way into the Target's credit card merchant account, and they were able to get a list of credit cards and things. So if you bought anything within like 3 years or something at Target, they probably had your account information. And there's ultimately like people will upgrade their security and companies will upgrade your security, but there's always a chance of that happening. What's helpful with that nowadays is the chip card readers on your credit card, since when you use that, it doesn't actually give your credit card information to the store. It gives a what is called a token, and that token is represents a code between the bank and the merchant account, so that they agree that this is a official card. It's a proper card, and that then the funds are get exchanged through that.
And it's more like a one-time.
Yeah, the token is like a randomly generated number, essentially, and they yeah. So those are the main ways that it do it. Like, but in general, if you got hacked, you probably gave out your account information somehow, some way.
If you got hacked.
Yeah, if you got hacked, you could bet that they got a hold of your account information somehow.
Okay. So then next, how safe is it to save personal info like passwords and credit card information on your different devices, and with the different internets too? Are they kind of across the board pretty similar? Are there some internet browsers that are safer to save it on? What would you recommend that way?
So when it comes to saving, because nowadays they have like you're talking about, the Chrome has, well, you want us to save your password for you, and the how safe it is, there's a inherent what do you call it?
Convenience.
Yeah, there's a convenience
Trade-off.
versus security, and there's a disproportional um what is it?
It's like a minimal
Yeah.
risk for a high convenience.
Basically, the more convenient, the more convenient passwords become, the less secure they become. But and the caveat to that is, the less convenient they become, the harder it is for them to hack, but also the easier it is for you to get locked out. So it's hard. Especially when it comes to the browser, if you save your device on or you have like a Chrome browser and it syncs between all your different devices, now you have technically your browser being or all your passwords on multiple devices. So the more devices you have, the exponentially more risk that you take. That being said, when it comes to being hacked from the outside, as if nobody is able to get a hold of your information like through a phishing thing, being hacked from the outside is a lot more rare. Like, again, they would need to find a Chrome security flaw and find your device specifically, and hack through the security flaw into the device, which is not impossible. It's a plausible situation, and so you do run that threat. But so it's ultimately like how much security versus convenience you want, because it is a lot easier just to have Chrome save all your passwords so you can log into everything whenever you need it. And especially now, Google is creating generating passwords for you so that you're not using the same password on all of your different profiles or logins, that generally most people do end up using the same password for everything.
Password apps. That was the next. So manage the password apps that manage your passwords for you.
So it basically comes down to which one being more secure versus the browser or manager apps, or the biggest thing that I would say, and this is, I don't have necessarily statistics based off of this, but whoever can throw the most money at security is probably going to be the most secure one. So for instance, Google, that's like their whole thing right now, is making it like these products. They have more money than most any other browser company out there, and they focus on their browser and stuff. So you could argue that Microsoft would be a close second, but
Microsoft is Explorer?
Microsoft creates Explorer and Edge.
Oh, I didn't know Edges. And then Google is Google Chrome.
Yeah.
And you had just taught me that Apple's is called Safari.
Yeah. But Google is the one that focuses on their browser, while the other ones usually have a browser as a side effect of something else. I would say that Google would have the most resources to keep the most secure platform, and also same thing with the security password applications or extensions or whatever you have. I mean, they're not going to have as much money as somebody like Google to keep their
encryption
safe.
I've been nervous to use the apps for the password management. I've been hesitant to save even just through Google, but I'm getting more and more, so I do. And I had enough. So yeah, it was about browsers, which we just started talking about. Which one for what? Oh yeah, the differences and the advantages between the different ones. Because I heard, for example, that Chrome sometimes takes a lot of memory.
Yeah, so there are caveats to different browsers. Each one has uniqueness in a way. Chrome tends to be just the easiest, right? Everything almost is designed with Chrome, unless it's a proprietary application that is usually it's a business application that is proprietary for Windows, and those are usually built on Explorer. But outside of that, most websites nowadays are built to conform to Chrome's browser, and if it works on Chrome, it'll generally work on everything else. And so that usually is the easiest one to use. However, yes, it uses a lot of memory because the way it is designed, every different task that Chrome does, it creates a whole new task in the task processes. If you go on your computer and you'd see like Chrome 1,000 different tasks, and especially the more extensions that you have, each one of those extensions will have their own task too, which makes it efficient in a way, but also a memory hog at the same time. So oftentimes what you'll see, like my cousin, he works at a place that his computer is pretty crap because the work office doesn't have like that great of computers. So he uses Firefox because it's more resource efficient. But at home, he'll still use Chrome because it's like an easier browser to use. Then you also have things like when Microsoft Edge came out. I think Microsoft Edge said that they were the only browser that was able to stream Netflix at 1080p proper.
Huh. Who would have known? Well, I certainly wouldn't have known. And apparently you know.
Yeah, like it was like a small thing. Nobody even cared because Netflix streams well enough. You don't really have like an HD Netflix that you really care about. Like I think there is a separate HD Netflix if you want, but like in general, it was proven that it does stream Netflix better just because it was more efficient. And so there are different things. Whether
I'm adding more questions. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so the different browsers have different, and then obviously Safari, designed to run on Apple, tends to work well on Apple. But
I use Chrome on my at work they gave me an Apple computer.
Yeah.
And I deal with it. But I use a Chrome browser. Are you saying it might be actually better for me to switch to the Safari?
Not necessarily. Like it might be Apple. If you are finding that your Chrome is running sluggish on your Apple computer,
today it was. Not usually, but today I think it was just the internet at work.
You can try to switch browsers to see if it's like the computer that's just being a resource hog, or like Chrome just being a resource hog bogging down the computer. It could be.
I do always have like 40 windows.
Yes, that would definitely.
So maybe I should consider a trial.
Eventually,
I'll have to update it.
Try it out.
Should do.
And yeah, right now the OS updates are always like a tricky one because you right now, I know your computer is saying to upgrade to Mojave.
Uh-huh.
And with it, there is inherent security fixes and things like that. But it's not like they. I think. Did they stop updating your? I don't know if they
I
did.
have no
I know
idea.
Windows kept after Windows 10 came out. They still kept updating Windows 8 and Windows 7. Well, I don't think actually they kept Windows 8. I think Windows 8 just died. But Windows 7, I know they kept supporting for a while. I think they did end support with it last year though.
When you say they support it, what do you mean?
That they would it would still get security patches and
okay.
things like that.
But then, like with this recent one, now they're saying go to 10.
Yeah, with Chrome specifically,
was
they found a security flaw that was on Chrome browsers that were on Windows 7.
And that was within like the last week.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't remember
pretty
when it was very
yeah.
recent, within the last month for sure.
Well, I just went last week.
And they, yeah, and Google said that it's the best thing to do is just to upgrade to Windows 10 at this point. Yeah.
The whole not having Windows thing. I need to just do that. But so say you have a computer and you're not great at technology and you keep meaning to get Windows, but you just haven't yet. And so you've just got like a little watermark that's like, don't forget to get Windows. Are you at increased risk?
I think you still get the updates. I'd have to double check on that. You still get the updates, but if they, especially if you have an unlicensed copy.
So that's not like if you don't do it at all. That's like if you just don't buy it, you get it from someone else.
No, if you like,
What do you mean?
like your computer to activate Windows because you don't have a licensed copy. I'd have to double check to see if you are getting the updates.
Is it so it's still sort of running on Windows even though I haven't like fully committed?
Well, you are running Windows. Like it's no doubt that you're.
What does that mean? What it like?
So Windows is an operating system. So like the
Okay.
computer has to have an operating system in order for it to even function. And technically, it needs a way a command system, but.
What?
But we'll ignore
Hold on, hold on. Back up for a second. Let me add these. Okay. Hold on.
But Windows, you have three main operating systems in the currently. You have Windows, which is a DOS command system.
Which is DOS, and they're from Microsoft.
Those are from Microsoft. Well,
Okay.
the DOS is just the code that is built. Windows is built upon.
Okay.
Then you have the Apple, which is a Linux program, and then you have just general Linux programs.
What do you mean, General Linux?
So Linux has different operating systems.
Is that like the Amazon thing, the Kindle?
Kindle is a Linux platform, but I believe that is also an Android platform.
Oh, how does Android fit into all of it?
So Linux is a command system basically. It's a coding that is separate. So there's two main codings, I guess, if you want to break it down. There's the Linux coding, and then there's the DOS coding that Windows has. The Linux coding, I think I'd have to check, but I know for sure the Linux is open source, which means anybody can build upon it without needing any licensor.
Like the root of it, or when you make something through Linux, it can be.
You can the root of Linux is open source. It's just the code that's used to build operating systems. then if you do build something on it, like Apple has done, they've made it, and at this point, it's been morphed, been modified so heavily. But they just created their own modified version of Linux, and they created as they call it their own operating system, and they have their
Apple
own
does.
licenses.
So what is? Sorry.
Oh, you can ask your question.
What is Raspberry Pi that uses the noobs operating. So is that Android? That's a version of Linux?
I
Or
believe
DOS? What is that?
I believe that is a Linux-based system.
And it can teach you to do Linux then, right?
I mean, it could teach you to do anything.
That's what I've heard.
But like depending on because it can teach you code that it doesn't use for its operating system. You can code for Windows on a different operating system if you wanted. You didn't have to use Windows to code. And vice versa, you could use Windows to code a Linux operating system if you wanted. Anyway, going back to where Android fits in on this, Android is a Linux-based system too.
Okay.
And that was something that Google took and created its own operating system that it did for mobile. And at this point, it's so different that you wouldn't even be able to see most of the Linux platform in it. But it is the root very early on was a Linux system. And then I don't know where iOS came from. I have to see. But I wouldn't doubt that you'd probably find. And we've actually read Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell.
Mm-hmm.
In that book, it talked about that one person, I can't remember what their name was.
Oh, Joy.
Bill Joy was the like the founder of coding, basically, is what he was called.
Was Joy, wasn't it? I think so.
And I can't remember at the time, but you'll see that a lot of things derive from the same code because it's, especially if you have an open source one, it's a lot easier to build upon that than to start all over and build from the ground up. So you'll find that a lot of these things have the same code setup. So going back to the main three systems for computer operating systems, you have Windows, which is DOS based. Then you have Apple, Mac OS, which is a Linux based system. And then you have Linux platforms, which generally, like, I think the most common one for people that are just learning about Linux is Ubuntu. And it has a very similar UI system that
user interface.
Yeah, that you can that works a lot like Apple or Windows, so it's very easy to understand.
You type into that like that black box, right? When you are dealing with that stuff. So when you say user interface, that black box?
No, the user interface is what you actually interact with. The command prompt is that black box, or in Linux it's called the terminal. And that's when you write little code lines in to get results to have it do. And so every time you push a button, like if you open up a browser in Chrome, or let's say you open up Chrome on your computer, it's basically just typing in that code for you in that command prompt.
Okay. So if I click this, then it automatically just does
so
XYZ coding to make it happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that, and then everything is translated into visuals for you so that you can.
And then those visuals I've learned are the zeros, the open or the closed, which is now more complex, not just black and white. And
so the ones and zeros is like before even the coding. Like
I don't understand.
it's further.
Right?
That's like the deepest level of the inception here.
That's
Is the
not
ones
the
and zeros.
pixels. That's not telling
Yeah.
each.
So like you have the operating system is the or what you see like the UI
That
is the
makes more sense.
very top. Then you have the code that the operating system is run on, so the command prompt. And then you have the ones and zeros way down here as the fundamental base of how computers are
Like
run.
the code. We have more questions to go over at some point.
So everything gets converted down to
Me.
ones and zeros at one point. And that's how it's being sent through the wires, is all ones and zeros. Which I learned how how electricity communicates ones and zeros is by voltage. So like a high voltage is 1 and low voltage is 0, and it just constantly is sending out voltage in signals. And that's how it communicates the data over
versus like the
the
light
network.
of like a fiber optic.
But they would do the same. Like so the fiber
just,
optic is just like
the impulse of
essentially think of it as a very very fast Morse code
with like
thing. Yeah.
you're saying that okay. How does this is like now I'm getting down now I'm curious about the satellite. There is satellite.
There is satellite internet.
How does that message get relayed?
I mean I imagine through waves somehow. So like
Aha,
it
so
sends
this is
it through.
something you might need to even
Yeah. It's
research,
I
but
imagine
know
that it
you.
sends it
You will.
in wavelengths. So probably a certain wavelength is 1 and a certain wavelength is 0.
Of what? I have so but I know you'll get us an answer. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd have to research it and see like how they do it. It's a lot of like there's once you start going down that and you're like it just boggles my mind.
All of it boggles my mind how all the interrelated pieces of technology.
Yeah, how everything boils down to like because that was one thing I always wondered like how does like it send ones and zeros on as an electric ball through a little copper line as it goes into my router.
Copper ball, yeah. Electric. That makes sense.
Yep. And then it's just sending them so fast that you're just getting so much information. It's insane. It is truly insane how technology works.
And I'm oh yeah.
So go to speaking about earlier, you had a question last week or the week before about notifications.
I don't recall.
It said you had problem with notifications not taking you.
Yeah. Oh no, I know what you're talking about. Now when Google Photos says, "Hey, this," and then later they say
so.
A different one.
I actually ran into the same problem.
Okay.
But it was on Google Maps, and this is actually I have been able to replicate it over and over again, so that it's even on the same. So I still have it after days later. So I have this here. It says I have 2 notifications actually from Google Maps saying you have arrived at your destination.
Okay.
And then the other one says somebody has a question about
a place.
And I'll see if I can focus it there. Anyways, it's right that second notification. But then when I tap it, it opens up Maps, but it doesn't actually send me to the notification. But you can see it still in the notification bar.
So what do we do about that? How do we make it let us go to where we want to go? How do we navigate to the...
That's exactly the thing, like...
They haven't fixed it and it's just a flaw?
Yeah, it's just a bug. There's no way in Google Maps to just like go to, there's no notifications tab in Google Maps itself. So if it doesn't take you straight there, you would have to specifically find, like, it had a question on the one place.
Yeah.
So I would have to go.
And that's because you do the local guides answer.
So I would have to go to the shop that it was asking about.
That's so wild.
And then see if I can find the question, because here's at the Q&A session area. And then from there answer the question that it was potentially asking me. So this one I think that is caused by I have 2 notifications, and since I'm clicking on both of them,
okay, yeah, but mine were
it
separate.
doesn't. Yeah, you had separate. And so it was probably a different bug, but this is a very common thing among apps, is the notification bugs are very buggy. And so in this case, I have a notification with 2 different notifications, and therefore it won't open either of them.
Love here.
Yeah, and these things are just kinks that they'll work out over time. For the longest time, Apple had a problem with their notifications being not grouped. So if you had, so here we have 2 notifications from the same thing, and it groups them together. But Apple, it would just do a reverse chronological order of your thing for the longest time, like,
and a whole list of.
And yeah, so you would have, if you had multiple messages and then multiple, let's say, phone calls and multiple voicemails and things, it would have a whole list of them all separated out instead of per app basis, like the Android's done for a lot longer. They fixed that over, I think, back in maybe even iPhone 8, but it was still, I know, for a while. And so this is a new era of phones, and they're still working on coming up and fixing things, because especially with notifications are a fairly new phenomena, to be able to curate and send it straight out of the application. You'd have notifications in applications before, but
yeah. And then again, that's also a love-hate relationship. Some notifications are helpful, very good. Some of those push notifications, that's why I don't have Facebook. I could not, and even I know you can turn them off, but it was just like, anyways. I do appreciate that helping me understand technology better. As I learn more, it get better, and as technology continues to be great, I really you taking the time to and like me more about technology efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, that's hopefully the idea is that as new technology comes out and people start getting set in their ways on the technology that they have, they'll at least be able to understand what might be beneficial and help them out, even if they stop following the tech trends per se, because it does seem that there's you'll see a trend of for a while you keep up to date with all the tech trends, and then at a certain age it seems that, or even just a certain point in your life, it seems that you just stop following them, and then you miss even 2 years of tech trends, and all of a sudden the whole world is an alien planet to you, and you just end up getting further and further behind.
Everything thinks now. Everything.
Well, that's it.
On that note,
yeah, that'll be our talk for today, and hopefully you learned a bit about staying safe on the internets and keeping your devices and tech safe. Definitely biggest thing to take away from is phishing. It's a big problem. Actually, John Oliver
I think I saw
just
that
had a robocalling.
Oh yeah, yep. Saw that one.
video all that, and he was like they just called and got the guy's mom's social security number.
Yeah, the man was sitting right there, but because they were able to make it look like it was his phone number calling his mom, when his mom answered, she was very trusting because, oh, that's my son's picture. I have his contact information on my phone.
And it was a different guy.
Yeah, it was
altogether talking. So like,
and he was able to trick this man's mom and be like, "Oh, mom, real quick, I need this for whatever paperwork. Can you just give me your social security?" And she did.
And so,
but
you'll get emails from people. So the general thing, my general short gist of keeping yourself safe is, if you do not go into a conversation expecting to give out your personal information, then do not give out any personal information in that conversation. You so if it's somebody that's calling you for any kind of promotion, or
even if they say they're your bank,
even
like
if they
if
call
they're
you,
contacting you, and they're claiming something, you might want to just
you write down the number. And what I like to do is I always ask like what location they're calling from. 9 times out of 10, if it's a scam, they'll hang up on you right then and there.
Not always though, so still vary.
It
does pass.
And the other part is if you do run into somebody that is trying to get your personal information, you get as much information, you do your research about them, and if you find that they're legit, then you already know that you're going into a conversation giving out your
after the due diligence.
So like, because it's no doubt that there are times, especially nowadays, where you will give out your information over phone, over things like that. And like, when it comes to us, or when it comes to talking to your bank and things like you don't always go to your bank in person. So it's a kind of a moot point to tell everybody, don't give out your personal information. So that's why I say, like, if you're not going into it expecting to be giving out any information, then you probably shouldn't.
Don't click the links in an unsolicited email. You're not.
Oh yeah, clicking links, because links can lead to downloads, which leads to because once you get something downloaded onto your computer, there's they can program things to download install instantly. Windows tends to be able to avoid that, because in order to install things you need to have elevated permissions, but there's always a chance that somebody finds a way around that. And so always make sure to not click any links that you don't know of. All right, that's our show. Have a great one, guys.
Have a good day.